Welcome to Carrie the Musical.
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking gimmick episodes of TV, from bottle episodes to noirs to a documentary musical that adapts musical adaptation of a famous novel that has also been adapted into a famous movie. I'm Derek B. Gale, and who's with me today?
This is Chris Cummins. I am a writer for Geek and the producer and host of Sci-Fi Explosion. Also, I'm a gigantic orange Bigfoot.
Wonderful. Hey, Chris, want to be my date to the prom? I hear it's going to be a night we'll never forget.
Oh, definitely. Will there be pig's blood?
Oh, absolutely. There has to be.
Oh, thank God.
Who could go to a prom without it?
Thank God.
We are talking about Riverdale, Season 2, Episode 18, entitled Chapter 31, A Night to Remember, the first of many Riverdale musicals based on stage plays, though the only one that's also kind of framed as a documentary, but just kind of, it's weird, we'll talk about it. Anyway, Riverdale is a currently airing drama, if you didn't know. It's also kind of a teen soap / murder mystery / kind of fantasy / like comic book superhero action show sometimes.
And yet still so much more.
And still so much more.
So
that
much
only
more.
barely covers it.
Yes.
It is developed by comic book author, playwright, and screenwriter Roberto Aguirre Sacasa. Began in 2017. Currently airing its 6th season on the CW. It sports a very large ensemble cast that we can just kind of touch upon as we go through the episode if we like. And other major thing, it is based on the long-running characters and the world of Archie comics. But it's also both like a pastiche throwback to teen dramas of yore and also a dark gothic neo-noir serial murder mystery show. Like I said, as you can tell, it's just known just for being the kind of show that will just do just lots of wild shit all the time. And it's great, and I love it. But before we go any deeper, Chris, what's your personal history with Riverdale?
Okay, well, it started in 1982 when my parents we were at a grocery store, and there was a grocery stores back then, and some still do have Archie digests at the register, quick impulse buy, and that was kind of my gateway to just not only the world of Archie but comics in general. And I am a huge Archie comics fan. I am an Archie historian as well as an Archie collector. I've had the absolute pleasure of working with Archie comics a few times. I've written historical essays for a few of their best of paperbacks, as well as the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a cold edition. So I know these characters inside and out. So when I heard that they were doing Riverdale, based on that alone, I'm like, this is amazing. But I love the work that Roberto did on both the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic and Afterlife with Archie. So it was a huge thrill, and I'm like, oh, I'm absolutely gonna watch this show because it sounds like it was like custom made for me. Because Weird Archie is the best Archie. In the 1970s, Archie comics went like full on like supernatural with titles like Life with Archie and Archie at Riverdale High. Even like Josie and the Pussycats had all these really hard like adventure based issues, and they are the nuttiest things you will ever read. People who are like, I can't believe Riverdale is taking these Archie characters and make them weird. They're it's like the precedence was in these comics because Archie comics got super crazy in the 1970s, and
Yeah.
And the show really reflects that. So to me, it is just like Riverdale's everything I've always wanted on screen. And with this season that just started, it's getting full on insane, which is what it's everything I've always wanted, Derek, to make a long story short.
Honestly, like, same, except without any of like the Archie comics background whatsoever. It's just what I've always wanted from a television show.
Oh, it's so good
in general. That's the thing. Like that's the thing with Riverdale. I think it's so funny to me is because like I remember so like my Archie comics background is like zilch basically. I liked the Sabrina the Teenage Witch sitcom and I watched the Josie and the Pussycats cartoon and also loved the movie, but never like associated either of those things with Archie comics. Like those always felt like a separate thing to me. Like and I never saw any actual Archie based like media or adaptation or anything. So like this is pretty much, other than like just cultural osmosis of knowing who the characters vaguely are and references to them, this is pretty much like my true introduction to the world of Archie comics, which is just hilarious, I think. And it probably is the same for a lot of people, especially younger people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I find that so fascinating. But I remember even when like originally hearing about it coming out, like I was a latecomer to actually watching the show, but I remember when it came out and I was like, whenever I do watch this show, I'm sure it's going to absolutely be my shit because I love the sort of like, especially like the WB era of like teen soap opera dramas where everything is just like, it's like technically based in the real world, but it's still so like cranked up and heightened. And this show does that, but then continues to crank it up even more to 11 and also makes it like a gothic, dark, like neo-noir drama with lots of serial killers and stuff too, which is like great. I also love that kind of shit in TV. It doesn't take itself too seriously until it needs to. And it's just like a fun as shit show. Yeah. And I just think it's so fun. And I think it's hilarious when people like rag on it or like, God, it's so cringy. It's just like, what do you think you're watching? Like they're
right.
You can watch one episode of it and tell that they're fully aware of everything that they're doing and all the tropes that they're playing with and the genre and the way that they're playing with genre in general.
And if anything, they've gotten more aware as the series progressed. Without getting too heavily into spoiler territory, the biggest problem with Riverdale is that it's what is ostensibly its main character, Archie Andrews, is the least interesting character on the show. He's always in like there's always something amazing happening. Like Jughead and Betty are investigating aliens, and like Archie's like opening a gym. It's always like he's stuck in like a mundane plot line, which still manages to throw things in like random bear attacks. Yeah. Where, you know, and it's still not interesting. Archie is getting mauled by a bear, and it's still like the least interesting thing that is happening on the show. Yeah. So this has been like, I reviewed the show for Den of Geek, and it's been like one of my pet peeves for years is like the problem with Riverdale is Archie, you know, and what would happen if, you know, Archie wasn't around very much. And we're kind of seeing that play out this season so far. And to me, this is glorious. This is now the absolute unhinged Riverdale at like 1,000 in terms of insanity. And to make it even better, now they're going to bring aboard Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which you know, is just like, it's just what I want. And I'm an Archie fan who is like, I mean, look, an Archie fan, you don't really hear too much about us like the way people talk about DC and Marvel, but like we are just as like dedicated to these characters. And Archie has like their own Archie verse and their own like as much, if not even more so than like Marvel, because they've been around longer, you know. So, this stuff's been happening since 42. So, you know, to have this all swirling on TV right now is great. And then like they're not content enough with playing with their own stuff. Then they decide like, oh, we're going to get Stephen King involved with like the Carrie, angle in the second season. And wow.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue because that's the whole section of this podcast, I think, is just going to be talking about Carrie the musical and then how that ends up kind of converging with Riverdale, because it's all really fascinating. Like the thing with Riverdale is that this episode that we're talking about today is the first musical that they do, and then they end up doing a number of musicals. But what's interesting about the majority of the musicals that they do is that they're not jukebox musicals where they just take like pop songs, and they're also not like musicals where they're writing their own songs for the show. They're not writing original songs. They still find out a way to do something totally different that I don't feel like I've really seen on TV as to this extent, or at least not as much, but where they take an actual stage play and the songs from the stage play and graft that onto onto an episode of the show. I know like Head of the Class has done this, but I don't even know if it was to the same extent.
The genius of what Riverdale does was this. Yeah, and Head of the Class was like the immediate like point of reference, I think, before this aired, that like, oh, this has been done before. But what Riverdale does is the way they choose. First off, they tend to choose musicals that are lesser known or not like these mainstream massive hits. Even in Next to Normal's case, which was a Tony winner, it still wasn't. It didn't have the cachet of like a Hamilton, right?
Yeah, so like my mom isn't going to know what any shows that Riverdale does are.
Same, yeah, and so like they take the shows, but they carefully select shows where the experiences of the characters in the musical parallel and mirror the experiences of characters on Riverdale. So suddenly you have, actors from Riverdale singing these songs without changing a word, and it speaks volumes about their characters. Like, for example, Carrie, you have the relationship between Alice and Betty Cooper definitely mirrors the relationship between Carrie and her mother in the play.
Yeah.
And so, they graft on the show, but there's the subtextual meaning of things that are actually happening on Riverdale. So yes, it's an adaptation of a musical, but it kind of pays tribute to both the original artwork, and it gives Riverdale like a secondary meaning that furthers its own characters. So to me, that's always the most interesting thing about these shows. And each season, it's gotten better at doing that. Especially Next to Normal is a show that I did not like when I saw it. I was just bummed out by it, and I just didn't like it all. And it may have been my favorite one on Riverdale because the way it spoke of the characters and their trauma, and I just really love that aspect to it. And I think it's a really, really ingenious writing that not only just pays tribute to the original musical, but it does help Riverdale advance its own story, which it's like advancing your own story is tough enough to one thing, but when you're advancing your story throughout someone else's work, first off, what balls it takes to even attempt such a thing, but then to have it work so beautifully, it's really great. And, I think like the words I use to most describe Riverdale is glorious trash. And that doesn't mean it's bad by any stretch.
Yeah.
It's genius the way they do so many things. I mean, this is a show that has a lot of just incredibly, incredibly smart writing behind it, behind what essentially is just like this trashy teen drama, but it's really so much more. And I think these musical episodes are like the ultimate example of how clever Riverdale can be.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing too, that they do get better every season, I think, with how they integrate the songs to the characters and match them. Because there are some songs in this episode where it's like a little bit of a stretch, like how they're sort of using it. But the thing with this episode that I think is just so stunning is that I still think that you could like, if this was the first episode of Riverdale anyone watched, I think that they would like get it, because every character has a moment and has like a beginning to end A to B like arc in it that is like very well established and clarified exactly where they're at. Then they use the songs to go on their journey to like basically be in therapy and deal with their bullshit. And then they end at a completely different place by the end of the episode. And like pretty much every single character goes through that, and you follow them on this journey. So it's like kind of miraculous they're able to do that. And then it still ends on a cliffhanger that like impacts the rest of the season. Like it's fucking wild.
It's until I think this episode that just the premiere of the 6th season, this Carrie episode is probably my favorite episode of Riverdale.
Sure.
Which is saying a lot, given all the crazy shit that's happened over the years.
Yeah.
And they actually released a release on vinyl, a cast album of the Riverdale cast doing the songs, which, my God, I have listened to. It's on Spotify too, but I've listened to the actual vinyl of it an unhealthy amount of times. And I just love the songs from Carrie the musical anyway. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good. They're good, talented singers on this show that they have, and the songs themselves are a bop. Like I've definitely been, I mean, partially because I've watched this episode like 3 times in the last week, but
Yeah.
also like just been humming the all of the songs on loop because they're so catchy and so good.
Something that Carrie White just have to learn. If she plays with fire, she's gonna get burned. I want her to pay up for all that she cost me and make her good and sorry that she ever crossed me. You gotta help me. I could even up this debt, and we could both give Carrie White a night she won't forget.
I think the other side that's so interesting about this is like the Carrie the musical of it all.
Yeah.
Because I do think that was definitely like a really fascinating pull. And I mean, it all makes sense once you watch the episode, but I wouldn't begrudge anyone who isn't like tapped into the musical theater world, who only knows of Carrie the musical for being like a famous flop, essentially, because that's been the narrative that's been pushed about it for the longest time. That's the only thing that I ever knew about it for the longest time. And I do have like my foot in the musical theater world. And I never knew that there was such a big like revival and sort of like cult status around it until relatively recently. So if you're listening and you have no familiarity with Carrie the musical, which I wouldn't be a surprise, it was a stage play, a Broadway musical based on Stephen King's famous novel, obviously. Originally premiered in the UK and then on Broadway in 1988. It had a book by Lawrence D. Cohen, who wrote the screenplay for the 1976 film and rewrote the screenplay for the 2013 adaptation. More on that in a sec, because there's other connections to that movie as well. The lyrics were by Dean Pitchford, who wrote the screenplay for Footloose, and the music was by Michael Gore, who wrote the music for the movie Fame. So like lots of like pretty well-established, like amazing people working on the musical. I feel like if you were reading that now, you'd be like, oh, well, obviously that must have been like a great hit and everyone loved it, right? Seems like they would knock it out of the park. But the weird thing about it is that it's like one of the biggest musical theater flops like in history.
Before it turned off the dark, it pretty much was like the go-to
Sure.
punchline. Like I always compare it to like Howard the Duck, how Howard the Duck was the thing that was just like loathed by everyone, whether they'd seen it or not. So it became like the go-to punchline in movies.
Yeah.
Carrie the musical was like the go-to punchline in musical theater, even though it was like, it was as a musical, it's fantastic, but because of the fact that like, you know, it was critically, that was the time when critics, before the internet, when critics could make or break something like more than ever before. And
Right.
critics just eviscerated this play to the point where it had no shot after the reviews came out.
I am the sound of distant thunder.
This is the one about telekinesis, which comes from the ancient Greek word for turkey. I'm kidding, but not much, for Carrie is a catastrophe. Last night at Carnegie Hall, I listened to the music of Irving Berlin. Tonight, I listened to 2 hours of stuff like this.
That ended up closing after 16 previews and 5 performances. It was attributed to a lot of factors, but I think like what you said, the critics were extremely harsh on it, probably went in assuming that it was going to be trash, which I think makes sense, I guess, at the time, right? Because it's only been recently that I feel like the general consensus has been like actually giving a shot to Broadway musicals based on films. Like that wasn't really a thing at the time, right? Like I don't feel like that ever happened. And actually Carrie the movie at that point, you know, the play was coming out like 12 years after the movie came out. Now we all just agree that Carrie is like a classic horror movie. Like was Carrie like put on that pedestal at that point? Or was I mean, horror as a genre, I guess, still sort of treated kind of like trashy in like industry circles?
It was definitely kind of in industry circles like, oh, you're doing this now. This is not a kind of a thing that we do on Broadway. And also, you know, it's not like Hedwig level like rock musical. Like rock musicals still were not respected at the time. And it also, with it also being a supernatural musical, it came in the wake of Phantom of the Opera. Which that was you have to realize that theater goers, whereas they were not narrow-minded, they were presented as narrow-minded by the media. So there's very much this attitude of, we already have a supernatural musical. It's Phantom of the Opera. It's done by Andrew Lloyd Webber. There's no more room for anything else like that.
Yeah.
You know, whereas nowadays everything is, you know, you look at Broadway now and there's like 5 things based on movies
Yeah.
or pre-existing pop culture, you know, things. But Broadway of the 80s was a very, very different time. So we have, you know, we have this thing where, you know, you have that rock music element of it and you have the horror element of it. You have it based on you know, Phantom of the Opera is what is considered, quote, a classic,
Mhm.
you know, horror tale, whereas Carrie was like, you know, okay, that's by
Yeah.
Stephen King. You know, he just it didn't have King didn't have the respect, the horror genre didn't have the respect. You know, it was in very, very many ways ahead of its time. So I think it was like a perfect storm of bullshit that kind of doomed Carrie, whereas, you know, the timing was off. You know, because
Yeah.
had this thing come out 5 years later, 10 years later, absolutely, it would have been a smash.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see it. I think it sounds rad. So, even if the music's bad, it just would be a fun show to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched all the bootlegs that
Mhm.
are online and everything, and I read there's a great book called by Ken Mendelbaum called Not Since Carrie: 40 Years of Broadway Musical Flops that really gets into like the details about this show, and there's like stuff like that. If you're into like Broadway history and great ideas that went wrong and just basically interesting failures in general, it's a book to read. But Carrie is a show that deserved better. And I know my Carrie fandom, I was aware of it, but it wasn't until like, you know, I was assigned to write pieces about like the musical and everything that I started to do like a deep dive thanks to this Riverdale episode. And
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing. And knowing Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, his relationship with theater in general and Carrie, which I'm sure you'll get into,
Yeah.
you know, it's just interesting to me that like I wonder how many people fell in love with this musical because of this Riverdale episode. Because
Yeah.
I certainly did.
Definitely me too.
Yeah.
The music's great. It's so great, and I already like the story of Carrie. So like, put those things together. You just do a production of it. I'm going to see it, and I'll love it. Like, there's no doubt. Yeah, and I want to plug. I'll make sure in the show notes that I share definitely the Den of Geek article that you wrote that was like all about the history of Carrie the musical, because that's where a lot of my information is coming from. First of all, but also like one of the things that I like that you did is include a lot of actual footage from the show and from the marketing, which is another factor that I think you point out in the article, is sort of like the marketing for the show didn't help it either, because
No.
it's fucking weird. Like the TV spot for it, that's just like bizarrely minimalist and doesn't feel like Carrie in general, like doesn't reflect the story and just looks like some weird like abstract performance art thing more than it does a Broadway show.
They were overly assuming that the public had a bigger familiarity with Carrie than they did, whereas this is something that was in the public consciousness. It was a bestseller. It's a perennial bestseller, but it wasn't, you know, 1976 was the last time everyone was really, really, really talking about Carrie. And this is basically like over a decade later. And the marketing was just really, it was overly artsy. It didn't feature really any of the music from the show, and you know, like
Mm-hmm.
it did the play no favors.
Yeah, which is so bizarre because like the story of Carrie is like so like the power of it is
Yeah.
how like relatable it is and stuff. So like, come on, y'all, it was a simple job and you messed it up.
I'm to this day surprised that they haven't done a big budget Broadway revival of it.
Yeah, I am too. I really am
think
too.
it would be a hit now. Like I know there have been like one-off performances and things like that, and you know, yeah, but it just I really am surprised that like in the time where we've had like the Xanadu play have
Mhm.
some success, and musical have some success, like I think Carrie's time is due again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that's interesting is that like, I mean, for all for all the frustration with like critic reactions and stuff to it, it was like a troubled production, like in all fairness. They did have a lot of problems with it.
Yes.
Lots of rewrites, which isn't like uncommon, but it's troubling. It's like, it is Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark levels of like bad stuff happening. There's like stories of like the pig's blood sequence would cause Carrie's microphone to malfunction, so you couldn't even hear her for like the last act of the play. There's a point where Barbara Cook, who played Carrie's mother, resigned on opening night after she was like almost decapitated by a set piece at some point. Yeah. So that's not fun. Maybe you should like work that out a little bit. Yeah. There's a funny quote that I found from a New York Times article from 1988. I think right around the time that it shut down. I think it was a cast member, I think of the UK production, not the Broadway production, but I could be wrong. But they said, "I didn't know what I was getting into. I don't know anything about the American musical. This is my first time, but all of us on the show have been incredibly, unbelievably inexperienced. It was like wrestling with a boa constrictor. It keeps coming and you keep thinking you don't know where to put your feet."
It's great.
Oof. So
it's so great.
Yeah. So like, it's entirely possible that if you were there in person watching the show, it did look like a clusterfuck that was worse than it was. But like, that's not the fault of the play itself. That's the fault of the production. So
what I think is interesting, kind of on that note, is this is a show that we're very fortunate to have a document of, because you know, there are some watchable bootlegs of some of the productions out there. And, you know, this is a time where if you wanted to bootleg a Broadway production, you did not have a cell phone to do so with. You know, you had to really work for it. So it's amazing to me that we have any recordings of any of these productions at all. And I'm so glad that we do, because they do give you an idea, a very, very, you know, obviously because you're not experiencing the majestic of theater live, you're just, you know, doing it in a lesser way, but you can still get some of the energy of the show. And I love that. Mm-hmm. And like, Christopher Gore, who was involved with this show and worked on Fame with Pritchard as well, he did a 1972 sci-fi musical called Via Galactica, which is like one of my pop culture white whales, because I'm just dying to learn more about the show, and there's very, very little about the show out there. There's no cast album or anything, and it's just like, I love that, like, Carrie has, you know, you can go to websites that are dedicated to Carrie the musical that are just audio video treasure troves of this thing. And that's one thing I appreciate about it, because if it was a few years earlier, we wouldn't even have any like audio video proof that it existed, you know. And I'm so glad that we do, because that is one way that we can go back and look at it and get a sense of what this weird creature of a show was. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I feel like that was a big help for the producers of the show bringing it together, of Riverdale, when they were bringing together this musical episode.
It is funny that the episode is about a production of Carrie the Musical that goes badly and has a lot of stuff going wrong and people dying, and the actual original production of it had a lot of stuff going wrong and people almost dying. So it all checks out.
Because Riverdale is the most meta brilliant show on television.
I do not disagree with that one bit.
It is the hottest of hot messes, and it is aware of how much of a hot mess it is. And so it just keeps building and building and building and getting better. And I'm so beyond here for it.
Yeah, 100%. Just a little bit more on Carrie the musical. Stephen King did go on the record saying that he liked it a lot. So he changes his opinions on things a lot. So I don't know how much that actually means, but at least at the time he did, which I think is kind of fun. And like you were sort of referencing, all of this, like, despite going down as a fiasco, it did garner it a cult-like following. I think that the same thing's going to, if not already, has happened with Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just anytime there's stuff like this where it's just sort of like, are you sure this isn't a hidden gem just because it's so bombastic and over the top and doing so much like cool, weird stuff? And that's exactly what happened with this. Lots of high schools and colleges have done productions of it. There have been parodies and unofficial productions of it. It sort of gained cult popularity until eventually it did have an off-Broadway revival in 2012. I know a lot of like the songs from the original production were sort of either excised or replaced or rewritten, but nevertheless, it still was a production of Carrie the Musical, a version that has since been much more acclaimed, still has like camp and cult status probably, but is definitely one that I think it just generally has more respect behind it, and people would be less afraid of putting up a production of it unironically.
Right. And
like, I think the hot mess of it all, for one, is one reason why it's perfect for Riverdale, but also like the connection of Gary Sakasa has to Carrie and plays and Broadway in general, I think is fascinating because he wrote the initial draft of 2013's Carrie. He also contributed some rewrites to the book for Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, another famous theater hot mess. He also wrote the book for the American Psycho musical.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
I've never seen it, but it doesn't surprise me because like that vibe seems perfect for characters to break out in song for.
Yeah. And I think most importantly, like one of the first things he ever got notoriety for, he was working with Dad's Garage in Atlanta, and he did a show called Archie's Weird Fantasy, which was a dark retelling of the Archie comic characters, and Archie was gay in that, and he got a cease and desist from Archie Comics, which is amazing given the path that, he's a guy who is very, very much responsible for a huge reason why Archie comics have become so beloved in the past decade. So I love that like this happened at some point in the 90s. I want to say like 99, but I love that like someone who one of the first things he did was this like takedown and dark imagining of Archie comics goes on to like shepherd this Archie renaissance. I love that.
It's great. It's so fun. Yeah. Like it really feels like a stars aligning kind of situation.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, how much better would Riverdale have been if they let Archie be gay in this show?
I just think given how sexual Archie is, I just think he should be pansexual in this show.
Oh yeah, that'd be great too. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean one of the the early things is like, let's get Archie as shirtless as possible on this show. It's just the show has got so many delightful things about it in terms of like how ridiculous it is.
What's funny because it is a CW show, so it's like they're probably contractually obligated to have him shirtless. But then they're sort of like, and he's going to be a volunteer fireman specifically so they can do a fireman's calendar.
Of course, yeah. And but one of the things that I kind of is interesting to me is how like the actual Carrie Riverdale episode is really dark and well done and kind of absent from the kind of bullshit that Riverdale usually pulls off, to just kind of say like, look, we can do these great serious kind of episodes here too. And it ends with like a genuinely like terrifying moment. There's a killer running around Riverdale, and Moose's girlfriend at the time, Midge, gets like killed on stage in this production of the show. People don't realize it's happening, and it's just this genuinely like terrifying moment. And Jughead's making a documentary, and so the whole episode has this real sense of like, not only are they doing these great musical numbers, but there's this real sense of like uneasiness and tension that is building through the episode like a horror movie. And it's like, it's basically Riverdale being like, this show, we can make it whatever we want, and you just have to be along for the ride. And I really thought that was an ingenious thing for it to do.
I agree. Yeah, in my memory after I had first watched it for the longest time, I kept remembering this as like an extended episode that was like a half an hour longer, and it's because I kept thinking of all of the murder mystery stuff from the next episode that they set up in this episode. But no, they just cut this shit off at the most unexpected time. Like if you're not paying attention to your clock or the time code, you would have no idea that the episode is about to end, and then it just fucking ends at the most like horrific point.
And it's
like,
really
wait,
unsettling.
what?
It's so it's so creepy the way it was shot. And it's such a masterpiece of like contemporary television, this episode. And I know people are going to hear me saying that and be like, Chris, it's Riverdale. Like, no, but it's really good.
Yeah. I think you're not. Yeah, if you don't think that, you're not giving it a fair shake, because you do have to like meet it where it's at. Like, yeah, it's not gonna be like an episode of like The Sopranos or something like that, because it's not. Like it knows exactly what it is,
and it doesn't aspire to be that.
Exactly. It knows exactly where it's at and what it's capable of and what it can do, and then just like meets those expectations all the time. Like it's always right on that level.
There's something to be said. This show does not get enough credit, and I don't think Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Katie King got enough credit either for this too. That these Archieverse TV shows, they completely own themselves in terms of what they are, and they are confident out of the gate, and they don't they just build from like the pilot episode. Like most shows, a pilot episode is very much a like, okay, we may go with this, but let's see how this goes. And there's a confidence that these Archieverse shows have, that they know what they're about out of the gate. And I think that really, I think the work that Roberto does on these shows just kind of, he's so in love with these characters and familiar with these characters that they have this so strong foundation, and you watch them develop. And a show like this Night to Remember episode, this specific episode, is so strong because it is daring to be like, what can we do to push the parameters of this CW 8 p.m. show?
Right.
And it does it in a way that you're like, wow, this show can be really creepy and unsettling. And then next week it can go back to being like its ridiculous standard self, but just even build upon that. And I love that about Riverdale. And it to me, it's like, it's both, it can be frustrating at times because it has a tendency to have some characters, Hiram Lodge, overstay their welcome. But, for the most part, it really is just like, what can we do here that will pull the rug out of what the audience expects from this show when they expect a very certain thing? And when it does that, like in episodes like this, A Night to Remember Carrie musical episode, it is a glorious thing to watch as not only an Archie fan, but as someone who like writes about TV as part of my living.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said.
This revenge fantasy? Never gonna happen.
Spoiled rich girl. Major daddy issues. What was that?
Don't try to get between me and my dad.
This is your last warning. Welcome to Carrie the Musical.
Riverdale, all new episode Wednesday, April 18th, only on the CW and the CW app.
I just have a couple of like other background things, and then we can just go like super deep into the episode.
Yeah.
This is just for fun. I just have a couple of quotes from Roberto, who was talking about like how, because Riverdale is a bit darker and a little bit off kilter and subversive, we talked about doing a musical episode, but we figured we'd do a darker, more genre musical. So makes sense why they go in that direction.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
What I found kind of interesting is that before they got to Carrie the Musical, they did consider Little Shop of Horrors first.
Yeah.
They also were like interested in recreating the real life story of a high school production of Sweeney Todd that happened in New Zealand, where students got injured by a prop raiser. So I guess it would have been like about kids like accidentally hurting themselves on stage. I don't know. I'm not really sure where they would have gone with that, but I'm glad that they settled on this because of the parallels being so clear to them. And I have a quote from Roberto saying it felt as though the songwriters had written songs for the same set of characters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And Head the Class already did Little Shop. So
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never seen the head of the class episodes. Like that was the thing I didn't learn until recently even existed, but I want to do them for this podcast. Because that's the only other instance that I know of a show. Someone might email me and correct me on this. That's the only other instance I know of a show doing their musical in this fashion of it being based on a stage musical. So,
Katie Keene too, but obviously.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the episode, shall we?
Yes.
I just pray every move I make is right. Where I go, who I know. Will I be alone on Saturday night? I don't worry if I blow my SATs. I worry, what can I possibly do? Just squeeze in, how, why not now? When will I belong? Look where I am, damn, my whole life feels wrong. What if I do snap? Holy crap, I'd crawl out of my skin, and so would you. 'Cause life just doesn't begin until you're in.
So if you want to watch Riverdale along with us, it is available for streaming in the US on Netflix. It is also currently airing, so you could watch the new ones on the CW or on the CW's app. I'll also say too, because I didn't mention this before, we're recording this right at the beginning of the 6th season, and this is definitely going to release after the 5-episode miniseries is done, during the break between the next 6 seasons. So hopefully all the good things that we're saying about the 6th season still stand, and they don't completely miss the landing by the end of it, but we'll see.
Which, I mean, Riverdale, that's another thing.
Yeah.
The charm of Riverdale is it does tend to miss the landing, but you have such a fun time. It'll stumble in the landing, but then it'll do something great, like killing off Archie in a Midsummer pastiche, that you'll forgive it.
Yeah, there's definitely it's very common for me to just be I like the first half of that season, didn't really like the second half that much, but then it's fine because then I've got the first half of the next season to look forward to. That's going to be stellar. So whatever.
It's absolutely a roller coaster ride watching Riverdale for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this episode, A Night to Remember, the synopsis per IMDb is, as rehearsals begin for Carrie the musical, the arrival of an ominous letter forces Kevin to make a difficult decision about the show. How accurate is that description? It's maybe 1/18th of the episode.
That's before the opening credits. That's real. Right. That's resolved. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. It's not really accurate. But you know what? As someone who's had to recap Riverdale, I don't think people realize how much happens in an episode of Riverdale until you have to write about it. So
my episode notes for this podcast are fucking off the chain. It's going to be a mess. We're going to miss everything. I think we've just got to hone in on characters that we want to talk about, because otherwise we're here for 8 hours trying to talk about everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The original air date for this episode is April 18th, 2018. So still pretty recent. It was written by Arabella Anderson and Tessa Williams. Other than Riverdale, Anderson's only major writing credit is on Transparent, which is mostly written on Riverdale. Williams is also mostly on Riverdale, but she has since become a supervising producer on it.
And some of the greatest stuff from Riverdale is coming from her lately.
Yeah.
The people who write for Riverdale really get it. And
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of those people worked on Sabrina and Katie Keene, rest in peace.
Yeah.
I talk about Katie Keene a lot because I feel like it is the show. I feel like this is a nice parallel. Whereas Phantom of the Opera kind of knocked Carrie the musical out of contention, Emily in Paris absolutely knocked Katie Keene out of contention. Katie Keene was this show that was definitely a way more lightweight show than Adventures of Sabrina or Riverdale, but it had some really interesting stuff. She had a con artist friend, and Josie was on it and everything. And I don't understand. I I'm always at a loss when something gets canceled on the CW, because the CW is where
Right.
shows go for 40 seasons.
Yeah.
And for this show to have gotten canceled, especially like if for no other reason than to keep the people at Riverdale happy, it is
Right.
baffling to me. Like, I want to know what really happened to make that show cancel. But that's an
Yeah.
episode for another time.
To be fair, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm part of the problem. Sorry. I do want to, though. It piqued my interest, like, even outside of the Riverdale thing, because Alexandra is played by a recent Power Ranger who I really liked.
Yeah, and she was great.
Camille Hyde. So, and I really like her. I think she's like genuinely good. Like, she was like Power Rangers actors, extremely hit or miss, mostly miss. And she was one of the actors that really like shine on that show. Like, oh, you are actually a good actor. So I will watch it eventually, and I'll probably just binge the whole season at some point, or series.
I do love how Riverdale keeps bringing Katie Keene characters on.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
As kind of a fuck you to the CW and
It's
to the people who didn't watch it, because I swear to God, I'm the only person who was like, I like Katie Keene.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never talked to a single person who was, everyone has either not seen it, not heard of it, or like, I tried to watch it and couldn't get into it. And I'm like, oh boy, but I'll probably like it because I like all of these, but you know.
I should state I'm a ridiculous person though. So yeah.
Sure. But I mean, Riverdale and the whole Riverdale Archie universe is for ridiculous people. Like
yes.
us, I think.
Yeah.
So interesting thing. This was directed by Jason Stone, who only directed 2 episodes of Riverdale and then became the showrunner of Hulu's The Hardy Boys series that I didn't know was a thing until like today.
Okay. I'm learning this just now. Okay.
Yeah. I find it interesting because this is a really good looking episode. So I wouldn't have expected it to just be one of the directors that isn't like one of their mainstays. So I don't know.
Great.
Interesting. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I don't really know how to like talk about this episode. I guess I'll set it up and then we can just sort of, all of my notes are organized more by character, not by plot point, because the thing about this episode is that there really isn't much of a plot outside of like, they're doing Carrie the musical and maybe there's a murderer, but like, that's really about it. Everything else is just a lot of character stuff, which is why I think this episode is so strong.
Yeah.
So the setup of the episode is that Kevin Keller is directing a production of Carrie the musical. He asked Jughead, who's played by Cole Sprouse of Sweet Life and Zack and Cody fame. I don't know if he's Zack or Cody.
I don't know either.
He's also like really of the teen actors. He's like, I think the only one that anyone would like know. Pretty much everyone else, like this was their breakout role or the one that everyone know them from. So that's the only reason I called that out.
I'm making a behind the scenes documentary following our production of Carrie the musical. We're going period 70s glamour, just like the Sissy Spacek movie. And I want you to be our videographer.
We also learned that like pretty much every main character is in this musical as we see them getting ready for their first rehearsal to the song In, which is a bop, just like every other song.
Welcome to Carrie the Musical.
Thanks.
And that's pretty much our main setup, in addition to the fact that, oh, maybe someone is sending notes claiming to be the Black Hood and say that they want the role of Carrie to be recast or else they'll kill everybody.
I found a letter in my locker from someone alleging to be, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, the Black Hood. It's a prank. Look at it. Why would the Black Hood, who was shot dead by my dad, be demanding that the role of Carrie be recast?
Yeah. Does seem pretty small potatoes for the Black Hood.
Which is a plot point for sure. And that's pretty much the plot of the episode.
Yeah, and Kevin just like ignores that. And here we go.
Yeah.
And that's its resolved before Riverdale flashes on screen. But and you know, In is such an amazing opening number. And it's also because it's the first time we see these characters sing, and some of the actors are better at singing than others.
Yeah.
And
sure.
some vocal work is touched up more than others, but it is just such a thrill when you see the show's reality, which is already pretty flimsy, completely break down as they start to sing on their way into school. And it is it's like a rousing musical moment that you're like, oh, what is this? This is, I don't know this musical. This is a great musical. And right off the bat.
Yeah. I think the Jughead's role in this is kind of interesting too, because I remember when I first watched it, I was like, oh, did they just like do that because Cole Sprouse can't sing or something? Which I think is untrue because he sings in other musicals and he sings.
Like, I think
fine.
It was like he didn't want to sing more than anything. Yeah.
That checks out for him. Yeah. But I think it also works out because like, where he is as a character is like a character that probably doesn't really fit any of the songs from Carrie the Musical. So it's sort of like, it gives him stuff to do, but also a reason to not be involved and just sort of be on the sidelines. And it kind of probably works out for the better.
And it goes with all, and also it like, I think it may be the first time we actually see Jughead like doing something truly artistic. Cause we always have like, we see him like sitting at his computer, you know, but it's always in a very like Carrie Bradshaw fashion. Whereas this, he's actually with the camera and holding it and actually doing something, you know, creative to show like he is this Renaissance man of Riverdale arts.
Yeah. And I guess I'll talk about this now because it doesn't really matter throughout the rest of the episode. I do think like the one mark that I might have against this episode, and it's like not even, it's such a nitpick, but like, I do think like the videographer documentary stuff ends up feeling kind of like so ineffectual and sort of like shoehorned in a way that it didn't need to be there. Yeah. Like no other musical does the videographer documentary stuff. They only have a couple of bits of like talking heads in this. And then there's a few funny moments where Jughead is like zooming in on someone's face too much and they like roll their eyes at him or something. Other than that, it's really only there, I think, just to set up like the murder mystery stuff for the next episode.
Yes, absolutely. And my thing too with this is the way that this could have worked is knowing what a musical theater nerd Kevin was, is if Kevin instead wasn't like, let's do it all big and glam, if he was going for like a company cast album, D.A. Pennebaker type thing. I think that would have worked, and he had Jughead, you know, but I think that would have been too much musical theater inside stuff throwing at the audience. But that's just me getting into Kevin Keller's head there. Because here is Kevin Keller. For those of you who don't watch the show, here's what Kevin Keller likes to do. He likes to have sex in the woods, and he likes to watch musicals. These are the two. Kevin Keller's a very problematic character on Riverdale. And and Casey Cott, who plays Kevin Keller, is so great. And every season, I'm like, please figure out what to do with Kevin Keller this season. Please figure out what to do with Kevin Keller this season. But so that's basically all that Kevin Keller does. It's kind of like gay stereotypes come to life.
It's such a bummer. It's such a bummer because like I know that the show isn't homophobic. It's got some great queer characters on it. It's just with him. Yeah, it really is like every season. It's just like, are you gonna figure out how to use them? No, you're gonna do the same thing over again. Oh, you're gonna just make them even worse this time. Oh, okay. Well, that's a choice, I guess. Like. Yeah.
It really is like Kevin Keller has sex in the woods. That's what his character as of the 6th season. Oh, and also Kevin Keller gets sucked into cults a lot. That's happened like 3 times too. It's very upsetting. Like Riverdale they don't participate in the bury your gays trope, but they do like make your gays kind of dopey, which isn't great either.
They really do. They really do. At the very least, I like Kevin. I like that Kevin gets like funny moments in this episode as he like sort of, because they don't overplay it. They don't turn him into like a diva or whatever, but he has like little mini diva moments as he's getting progressively more stressed with things.
Am I directing a train wreck? And where's my tea?
Fangs is just like the silent participant throughout all of this.
It's such fun. There's such great comedy moments, subtle comedy moments in this episode too, which again, as we said before, gets genuinely freaky.
Yeah. The tones in this episode are wild.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's like watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in terms of tonal shifts. It's delightful.
Yeah, I love it though. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, everything else I've got is just character by character. Do you have a character that you are just itching to talk about first? And we can just talk about their whole story in this episode in one go.
Well, the Betty and Veronica, I mean, their stories are interrelated in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm Betty. I play Sue Snell, the good girl.
Veronica Lodge, playing mean girl Chris Harkinson.
And it's definitely, I mean, I feel like it's so much, and especially, and again, I'm going to spoil Riverdale for you, but this is an old episode. It really is Betty's episode, especially when, come to learn that the Black Hood is her father. And because so much of this episode is about Betty and her mother's relationship and how non-traditional that is and how it parallels the relationship of Carrie and her mother in the book. But a side plot is that Veronica and Betty aren't getting along too well.
I think what's funny watching this episode out of context a little bit, because it's been a while since I've seen the second season, is that like I know that there's setup because Veronica basically lied to everyone about what her dad was doing and South Side High getting closed. It doesn't fucking matter. All that matters is that Betty is mad at Veronica for lying to her friends.
Yeah.
And like, but what's funny is watching it out of context, like Betty, they really do have to like crank Betty up to her worst in this episode. And it's like, you do understand where she's coming from if you've been watching it, but also if you're just dropping into this, it's just like, this girl is so nasty to everybody.
Veronica lied to all of us, you included, conspiring with her parents against the entire school. I mean, and it's fine that you're doing exactly what Tommy Ross would do, which is stand by her. But from where I'm standing, Veronica's just as much of a privileged, selfish, spiteful, mean girl as the part she's playing.
It's so funny.
Which is so not Betty.
It's right. Right. She's mean to Veronica. She's mean to her mom, like just mean to everybody. So the whole episode is her, like her apology tour essentially. But I think it's really well done because it's all about her basically like learning to empathize with her best friend and her mom and be like, oh wait, they are going through shit and I should like be more open to that and understand what they're going through and be there for them essentially.
I've been a terrible friend.
I couldn't disagree more.
I think you hide so much you feel inside, but I know deep down there's a fire burning bright. From where you stand it might not be clear, but you shine from here.
And it's also interesting to note that, this episode, which is in the second season, deals a lot with Betty and her mother, which the fifth season, next to normal musical episode, is again Betty dealing with her mother because their relationship is the most fraught relationship throughout the series. I would say even more so than Veronica and her father. Because, Alice is a lovable character and Hiram is not. Alice Cooper, the unfortunately named Alice Cooper, but that was the name in the comic.
Oh my God,
before the rocker came along.
That never even occurred to me. I just went with it for so long. Oh my God, that is hilarious.
So they have this very fraught and difficult relationship, but they're both such lovable characters, and they've absolutely softened the Alice character over the years too, to the point now where she's the only parent who's still around on the show, really. I mean, in a stable way. So
I think they realized like what a gift they had with Mei Chen Amick. Because she's great. Like she's so good and she's always been good no matter how heightened they make Alice, because she is much, much worse in like the first season than she is even by this point in the show. But she's always A+. Like, and I'm glad that they realize that, involve her in all their musicals now.
Who's playing your mom?
Margaret White.
I am. Mom? Wait, seriously?
Settle down. Yes, it's untraditional, but to me, there's nothing more amateur than age-inappropriate casting.
I'm really looking forward to getting to know who this woman is, get under her skin, and of course, spend some quality time with my daughter, Elizabeth.
And once they brought in Penelope Blossom, you didn't need the quote-unquote, insane parent, And I'm not saying insane in a way to make light of mental illness. I'm saying, insane because the things the character does are insane. So Penelope Blossom began to fill that role. They started to make, especially when they got Alice Cooper involved with Jughead's dad, and now Archie's inexplicably hot uncle. They have, they just, I think it's definitely like they're writing to an actress's strengths, and Madchen can do it all, it seems. But I think like this episode is a great early kind of groundwork laying of showing that, like, Betty and Alice's relationship, they want it to get better. They each want to work to get it better, but they also acknowledge that it's going to take time. And I like that Riverdale has really taken the time in that to, Riverdale's not a show that handles relationships in a realistic manner. And so whenever it does, it's always super interesting and really extra well done. And so to have that with the Betty and the Alice Cooper relationship, it's been a slow burn over the years, but you've seen it grow and evolve in a very naturalistic way, which is a kind of change of pace for the show. And it's something that still is being worked on today. And I like that aspect of the show a lot.
Mom, I'm not going anywhere.
Everything is crumbling. I've lost everyone. No, I haven't lost everyone. I've driven everyone away.
My mom's always been a woman on the verge, but I have to do something to help her, Jughead. Something to make her feel less alone and abandoned.
It is really highlighted in this episode because Alice's whole thing, and we kind of like jumped back and forth between Betty to Alice at this point, but they're so interlinked.
They're so intertwined.
Yeah, they're so intertwined. And like Alice's whole thing is like how she's driven people away. And I think that's really, it's such a great way to like integrate her into this story, into the Carrie story. Cause like obviously Carrie, in Carrie, like the mom is like a little more two-dimensional, I think, than Alice is, only because we get less time with her in the story. But with this, it's sort of like you get like Betty is basically viewing her mom as if she is Carrie's mom, in that like you just want to control my life and that's it. And then from Alice's point of view, it's just sort of like, no, I lost my husband, and he does suck, and it's better off without him. But it's like I chased him away. I chased my illegitimate son away, who turns out to not be your son. The Cooper family is crazy. She doesn't even mention Polly in this episode, I don't think. But like that's another child that she like drove away. Like it's just so it's just so fascinating to basically turn like a villainous character in the play into basically casting her through the eyes of a sympathetic character, and like getting in her head, like getting in basically like you're getting into the head of Carrie's mom and Alice at the same time. And like, it's just like mind bending how well it works.
Aren't you aware how people deceive? They'll take you and break you and then they relieve you. Carrie, you are the love I was betrayed for. My pride and my shame, my Betty. We're one and the same. Don't go.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where the other characters are in the show. Like the crux of the episode is Betty and her mom, for as far as I remember.
The weird thing with Betty is that she's at the sort of convergence point between Veronica and Alice. So that's three characters that are very tightly interlinked. And then everyone else's story has light crossover, but it's pretty more or less self-contained into their own story. Yeah. So in the end, like Betty ends up feeling like a bigger anchor of this episode, but I think everybody probably gets pretty equal amount of time. Betty just shows up in every like multiple people's stories more. And she does get a lot of the most notable moments. I do love, it's so over the top, but it's so funny when she's tearing into Veronica after the World According to Chris song, which has been stuck in my head for so fucking long. So catchy. And the choreography that they're doing in that one is so good.
I hate to break it to you, my daddy taught me you get nowhere being nice. So now I'm sharing his advice. The world according to Chris is better to strike than get struck. Better to screw than get screwed. You'd probably think it's bizarre, and that's the way things are.
Just love that song.
Perfect. And I love the idea that like we're gonna give Veronica, like the spoiled rich kid, a song that goes to the spoiled rich kid in Carrie. Like, yeah, it's so simple, but it works beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, but after that song, Betty just straight up tells Veronica,
You are the literal embodiment of Chris. Never has a role been so perfectly typecast. I mean, think about it. Spoiled rich girl, check. Major daddy issues, check. Bad to the bone, trying to control everyone around her, including her boyfriend and best friend. Check, check, check.
on stage in front of everybody. It's so mean.
It's this completely out of left field. It goes against everything we've seen.
I know. And it's sort of like, I'm just going to buy into it and just say that she's just very stressed. And this is just her at her wit's end. But then like that then dovetails into like Archie's best line in this episode, which he doesn't get a lot, but it's so funny because it's like an objectively bad, terrible line, but like it's so good in this context because he just tells Betty,
so really, who should be playing Chris and who should be playing Sue?
And it's just like a dagger to the heart.
And
it's
like
so
we just at this moment we have to really, single out KJ Apa because the poor guy is now 6 seasons of being saddled with this nothing of a character. Like Archie is such a nothing character. Like he's a himbo. Like that's all Archie is on this show.
When Kevin came to me about Carrie the musical, he said I was the literal embodiment of Tommy Ross. Loyal, selfless, a hero, a force for good. But I'm none of those things.
And he is a character that everyone kind of reacts to, but he's supposed to be like the main character, but he so isn't because he's not interesting enough. And he's surrounded with all of these really interesting characters. Like in the comics, Archie's lovable and he's clumsy and he's goofy, and he's, he can't decide who to date.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to translate that to TV. And the show has tried its best. And, like, the problems with the Archie character are not KJ Apa because that dude, like...
He tries
there's
as
that
hard
one
as he can.
scene after Archie, where Reggie comes after Archie in the locker room, and they're both shirtless. And, it's very, like, homoerotically charged. And... Reggie kind of sees Archie's scar from when Archie survived a bear attack and develops a newfound respect for Archie. And it's one of the most ridiculous scenes I've ever seen in any kind of entertainment ever. And if I'm going to show anyone one scene from what Riverdale is like, it will be that moment. Because it kind of is the alpha and omega of what this show is all about. And that is like having this Archie character who is like supposedly like he's just the best dude on the planet, but he's a little dumb. And
he tries so hard.
He just tries so hard. And I love that about him. And they sometimes give him these moments where he is because he is the show's like, I guess like emotional anchor. He is the one who's always like, he always wants to do the right thing. And and I love that, like, where we are in the 6th season now, that has cost him his life. It's wonderful. Like,
because Archie does have a storyline in this episode, but it's really less his story and more his dad's is the thing.
Oh, that's right, the car with Mr.
The
Lodge.
car. And the thing that I realized when I was watching this episode is that, like, I do think that this show really did lose a lot when it lost Luke Perry.
Yes.
And I think because he is there as sort of like this force for good in Archie's life, so that Archie is allowed to like make mistakes and go down dark paths. And then you have Fred there as sort of like an anchor. And then once you lose that, then it's like, well, then I guess Archie has to fulfill the Fred role, but then that makes him, but like that kind of role isn't built to be a main character. So like,
and Archie became rudderless at that point. You know what? It's been so long since I've seen these early episodes that like, that is an excellent point. Like once Luke Perry passed, that's when the problems with the Archie character really came to the forefront, because they don't know what to the writers never really had a sense of what to do with him, because they wanted him to like live up to Fred's legacy. And also, like, by all accounts, Luke Perry was just such a force of light and love on that set, and to not have that anymore is like, what do we do with this character?
Right. That stuff is also really compelling in this episode because of Luke Perry specifically. The whole story of Archie is that he got a Firebird given to him by Hiram Lodge, the big bad of the show, who is like, it's so weird how obsessed he is with Archie Andrews, but like his whole bit is that I guess at this point he's less obsessed with Archie and more a rival to Fred and trying to like ruin Fred's life, and he's doing that through Archie. So it hasn't gotten that ridiculous yet, and he's doing that by trying to ruin Archie's relationship with Fred by giving Archie this like hot car that he knows is going to hurt his dad. Archie's keeping it a secret from his dad because he knows it's going to hurt him, but Hiram, basically spills the beans to Fred just to hurt them.
Dad, it's just a car.
What, just a car? Did I raise you to be that spoiled?
Seriously, this doesn't have to be a big deal, Dad.
It is to me, son. I was planning on us going to the junkyard and picking out an old jalopy. We could have fixed it up. Like me and Grandpa already did with my first car.
And that basically teaches Archie a lesson that, like, I love my dad and I don't want to hurt him. And
because Fred has this jalopy, which is his classic jalopy from the comics, and he wants to work with him on fixing it up. And it is straight out of the comics, this car. It is wonderful.
Fred wants to buy it for him.
Oh, he's about to.
And the way that Archie apologizes is by buying it at the end of the episode.
I gave back the Firebird, Dad. And I sold some of my music stuff so I could buy this off Junkyard Steve. It needs a lot of work, Dad. But I'm up for it if you are.
You better get going, Archie. I don't want you to be late.
Because I remember losing my mind over that.
It is really sweet. It is so funny, though, because it's like, it's so out of time on like a CW show.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. And it's just like, that's what you wanted to do? Okay. But yeah, it's like, so yeah, it's like,
and it's such a weird
nice
thing
reference
from the comics, too. Like every now and then the show would just go all the way in on like this concept from the comics that is just so like, so outdated. And I love that because again, this is a comic that's been around for 80 years. And for like 60 of those years, Archie was driving around the same car,
Yeah.
And I love that kind of some of these goofy, outdated elements of the comic find its way into the TV show from time to time. It's wonderful.
That's what makes it feel, I think, a lot like, even though it is based on comics, like I feel like a lot of people don't put it in the same category as like the DC CW shows, but like it is still doing a lot of the same stuff and makes a lot of the same sort of iconographic references.
Absolutely. I mean, as someone who is an Archie comics historian, I could tell you, like, this show has done its research, and if you've ever seen an interview with Roberta, you know that he knows his Archie comics, it's fantastic because people think because these are humor comics, they don't have their own continuities and mythologies and everything, and no, it definitely does, and that's one of the most interesting things about Archie comics to me is this whole very lived-in universe of characters that it has, and to see how this show incorporates, these characters from time to time.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to say about Archie is that the funniest fucking thing in this entire episode is, I don't even know if it's meant to be a laugh, but during the Do Me a Favor song, when KJ Apa is dancing, the goofy look on his face through the entire song is so good. It's so funny.
Okay.
I believe that had to be intentional because I think he is a comedic genius who is not given the chance to show that off. I am certain.
I hope so.
That was intentional because it it is so consistently over the top throughout that whole performance. That is an actor's choice.
It feels like that was the thing that felt the most like a high school production to me.
Yeah.
Like this is a TV, this is a high school on TV. So like their production just looks like a professional off-Broadway production of a show. But then you have like your teenage actor who really wants to just show off what he's doing and is just mugging to the audience. Like that's what it looks like. It's so good. I'm definitely going to like clip it and put it on social media when this episode comes out. It's my favorite, probably my favorite part of the episode actually.
It really is. It's hilarious. It really is. Oh.
Well, there's still plenty of things we haven't talked about. But one big one that we haven't touched on is Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl Blossom, playing the iconic role of Carrie White.
Tone deaf.
Because she has a roller coaster of shit going on in this episode too.
As she always does. Yeah.
As she always does. I love Cheryl. Cheryl has consistently been like my favorite character on this show. Was not that
she gets
in
the
the
best
first
lines. I mean, she does the best everything. Yeah.
I've never seen a consistently written dialogue for a character always be like so top tier as with this character. I don't know how they do it. But like the thing with Cheryl that I think is interesting is that the whole bit with her is that like it's surprising that she would be cast in the role of Carrie because it seems like she is the most un-Carrie-like person on the planet. And then so her journey for a lot of this episode is actually her being cast as Carrie is perfect. It makes a lot of sense, a weird amount of sense.
I am the sound of distant thunder, the color of flame. I'm Carrie. I am a song of endless wonder that no one will claim, but someday.
One of the main conflicts of the episode is that the supposed letters from the Black Hood are trying to get Cheryl recast. She almost has a sandbag dropped on her. So it's like, is that an accident or someone trying to kill her? And the context too, that like they don't really go into that much other than just sort of vaguely saying that she's gone through hell in the season. But like, this is like right after she's been rescued from like a gay conversion torture convent place. So like she has had a legitimately rough go recently as of this episode. So that's going on with her. And that's why she feels like she wants to sort of bring herself back up. She makes a Dark Phoenix reference.
Have to recast the role of Carrie.
I will not succumb to thespian terrorism and allow myself to be ousted from this production. After the fires I've walked through, Kevin, the world needs to see me up on that stage. A Dark Phoenix reborn in the spotlight.
Before we get to the stuff with like her mom and everything, one thing that's interesting is that they do also call back to an interaction she had with Josie earlier in the season where she gets obsessed with her and like sends her a heart. It's really fucked up and weird.
Was it a pig's heart? I forget.
I think it was a pig's heart, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of like, it was a weird point in her character journey. It was like the first instance, I think, of her grappling with her sexuality, which ends up coming to a head in this season. But obviously, like, that's a fucking insane thing to do. So this episode finds a way to sort of repair that between her and Josie.
I know everything I did was legit crazy, Josie. But I was wrestling with some dark, Carrie White-like demons. And I'm so sorry. So please forgive me.
That's how it starts. To unsuspect. In a world where nothing's sure and nothing's ever guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. You should trust the way you feel. Trust the way.
The only problem that I have with it, I think, is like a problem that Riverdale has acknowledged since then is that like all of the black women on this show at this point like either get nothing to do or are just reacting to characters, usually Cheryl for some reason. And this is another case of that where they have Josie played by Ashley Murray, who's very talented, a good singer. Josie's whole deal is being a singer, and yet like has her only role in this episode is just to react to Cheryl and forgive Cheryl, and then she's gone from the whole episode basically.
Like
which is
she would be Carrie. Like she's an established star. There's no no way that she would not be the lead of this musical. Like,
yeah, it's a real bummer.
Yeah.
It's a real bummer. And I think it's noticeable too that it's like that. And then also like Tony's the other character who gets who's in the play, but gets nothing to do other than just like react.
Yeah,
to
they
Cheryl.
really, I know they really build up Tony's character. And I mean, in the 5th season, Josie comes back. And Josie was a main character on Katie Keene, but Josie came back to Riverdale. And man,
it's so good.
Did Josie have her revenge. Josie, that episode is just a joy to watch. Josie just remind everyone of how shitty they were to her. And it's Riverdale calling out its own writing staff too, which is so fantastic. Good. Yeah.
I think I want to do that episode on this podcast too, because then it's also a musical. It's also like spotlighting a character who has like never really been able to be a main character on that show until then, despite ostensibly being, part of the main cast.
Yeah.
Like it's such a bizarre episode, but in such a good way. It's like probably my favorite episode of that season.
It absolutely is the best episode of the season. And it pains me that they've yet to announce that spinoff. Like,
me too.
What is going on? Again, the CW, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. All you have are DC shows. Like, and Walker Texas Ranger will go another 30 years because of Jared Padalecki. But like, please give the Pussycats their show already. It's ridiculous that you haven't.
It's silly. I mean, like, I know you're a Katie Keene stan, but I feel like the Josie and the Pussycats show should have happened before Katie Keene happened.
Oh yeah. It doesn't. Katie Keene is also a 3rd tier Archie character, so it was a silly choice from the get go. What they did, I appreciate that they did this, and they were incorporating all this Josie and the Pussycats mythos into the show anyway. But it was just like, why the Pussycats should have gotten a spinoff way before Katie Keene. Like, I think it was just Katie Keene was because they wanted Lucy Hale, and they didn't know, they couldn't make her a character who already existed, so.
What a bummer. I do like that Joe's super minor moment when Cheryl is sort of ranting about like,
I've heard whisperings that some of you ensemble vultures don't think I'm fit to play or sing the role of Carrie White.
Josie just overlaps her she's in the background, like they don't even focus on her, they don't cut to her, but as Cheryl's talking and Cheryl's like, you say that I can't sing, and Josie just says no, and Cheryl just continues talking. It's so good. Like, it almost felt like an ad lib from Ashley Murray, honestly.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, this show is so glorious.
It's so good. But yeah, as the episode progresses, Kevin gets another letter telling them to recast Cheryl. And he's like, I really think that you might actually be in danger. Like, this is really rough. In a really good scene, Cheryl's like pushing back on it. But then unfortunately, her mother shows up and is like, nope, you're still a minor and you need parental permission, and I ain't going to give it. I still have power over you.
Mother?
Even in a town as twisted as Riverdale, students require parental approval to partake in certain extracurricular activities. As I reminded Principal Weatherby when I told him you didn't have my approval to do the musical and never will.
So what, you just feast on broken dreams now? Is that it?
Playing a murderous telekinetic teen who kills her mother? Please. This matricidal revenge fantasy? Never gonna happen.
Which sucks. I mean, it's a really good scene because their dialogue is always really good, and I'll probably cut some of it in. But it still is really devastating, given that a lot of what's happened with Cheryl is like based in like violent homophobia, essentially, at this point.
Yeah, and all the trauma that she endured at the hands of her family.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Oh, but she gets a one-up on her mom, thankfully. It's great. Cheryl gets like a pumped up speech from Tony.
Even Carrie White could stand up to her mother.
Hey, Cheryl, you gotta show your mother who's in charge.
I don't know if I can anymore. I'm not the same girl who burned down Thornhill and cut off her oxygen.
Sure you are. You're not done playing Carrie, Cheryl. Not by a long shot.
And Cheryl gets an odd, funny line that like maybe remember just how much has happened. But she's like, I'm not the same girl who burned down Thornhill and cut off her oxygen, which is like, oh yeah, you did. You did burn your house down and like almost suffocate your mother like at the beginning of this very season. That's wild.
Because so much happens on the show.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, but it does remind her that she's a badass bitch. So what Cheryl does at the end of this episode, since she can't play Carrie in the play, she's going to basically be her in the real life. She shows up in a beautiful prom dress, covers herself in pig's blood, carrying a candelabra, and confronts her mother.
You know whose blood this is, Mummy? This is Jason's blood. This is Daddy's blood. And the next blood to be spilt will be yours. Cheryl, dear God. You've been in cahoots with Daddy's twin. You tried to kill Nana Rose, and then you shipped me off to a ghoulish nunnery. But your depraved gambits are finished. I burned one house down, I'll happily burn another.
Nightmare child, what do you want from me?
I want to be emancipated. Start packing, Mommy. You and Uncle Claudius are pig people and should live amongst the pigs.
Which again, it's sort of like if you've never watched the show before, you're like, excuse me? And Cheryl's mother calls her nightmare child in like great line delivery. I love that so much.
Right. Yeah.
It's great. Rules. The other thing, the other thing, there's many other things actually. One of the things that I think is kind of funny is that like the murder mystery subplot, the only time there's any like investigation done or anything, I shouldn't even call it murder mystery because no one's murdered until the end of the episode. Right. But the ransom threatening notes mystery is that everybody thinks that it's probably Ethel, who is played by Shannon Purser, who was Barb in Stranger Things, who's wonderful in this show, by the way. I love her every time she shows up.
And who is so underused and it bums me out.
It really is. And she's got a rockin' voice too. She's such a good singer in this. Like she doesn't get much to sing, but whenever she does, it's great. They think it might be her because she is the one who is sort of like the often victimized, like bullied nerd girl, too pure for this world. So it makes sense that she would be a good Carrie and wasn't even allowed to try out for Carrie because Kevin just cast Cheryl without auditioning anyone. So like there's a really funny scene where Betty tries to get Ethel to confess.
Someone picked out all the M&Ms of the trail mix.
Oh, that's terrible. It's probably Cheryl. She's always taking things that she shouldn't. Like the role of Carrie from you. For Kevin to have cast Cheryl as Carrie without even letting you audition, would you say you feel angry?
I bet Cheryl took all the snacks. Don't you just hate her? Don't you just like want to kill Cheryl? It's so funny and like so awkward. And Ethel is just like, what? No? What are you doing?
Betty is especially terrible in this episode.
She really is. She's so bad. What's hilarious, though, is that she becomes an FBI agent and isn't that much better at interrogating people. That said, they leave everything open over whether Ethel did it or did the murder at the end or not. Like the thing about this episode is that like as much as this is a character story, it's also so much setup for what does become a murder mystery that we will not talk about because it doesn't happen in this episode.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Cool. So we've at least touched on every character. So I'm going to kind of jump to the finale. And then if we have any spare thoughts or whatever, we can always double back and talk about people. But the finale of this episode is fucking wild. So we see the cast in the dressing room singing A Night We'll Never Forget.
This will be just great. Yeah, my life is gonna take flight.
Can't wait till Saturday night. You ain't seen nothing yet. It's gonna be a night we'll never forget.
You ain't seen nothing yet. It's gonna be a night we'll never forget.
Another bop. I guess every song is a bop. I should just say
every
that.
song is the ballads are really good ballads, and like the up tempo numbers are bops.
Yeah. As you know, everyone's had their therapy session, has repaired their relationships. You know, Betty has gotten over her shit with Veronica. They forgive each other. She and her mom are in a better place. Archie and his dad's in a better place. Everybody seems to be doing well. They even like Chuck Taylor has like a little subplot in this episode, who like, if you've watched the show, he's just treats women terribly is basically his whole character arc. And then in this episode, he's just is doing better, and everyone's like, hey, Chuck, you've done better. Isn't that great? Everything's going great. Everyone's happy.
Hey, Chuck, you've done better. Now we're going to not have you on the show anymore for no reason.
I know. Does he even
It's such
appear after
bullshit.
this? Like, is he even like in the third season? Like, it bums me out so much.
The way this show treats characters of color is reprehensible.
Horrendous. And it's just like, is it an accident? Do they just happen to always cast people of color in like roles that they don't care about? Like, I just don't understand.
I feel
it's
like
so bizarre.
I do feel like the show has gotten better over the past
past
couple of seasons, but I mean it should have never been bad to begin with. There's no excusing it.
Yeah, I think after, I know like Vanessa Morgan, who I don't even think is, I've named it all, but she plays Tony.
Yeah.
And I know that she was very outspoken I think at the end of season 4.
And rightfully so,
where it's just like, I've been on this show for like 3 years now and have nothing to do. Like why, and I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Like, why is this happening? And after that, and I think Ashley Murray, I think also like has said stuff too, to that same effect. And like, there was a noticeable change in season 5 where it's like suddenly Tony has like 15 jobs. Josie comes back and reads the entire cast. Tabitha Tate is introduced and fucking rules and is like part of every storyline.
Tabitha Tate is, and this is not a character from the comics. Tabitha Tate.
Oh, really?
Is the best.
I didn't know they created her for the show.
Yeah,
That's
she's
cool.
not a. I need to double check that, but as far as I know, she's. It could be in the past couple of years she was introduced, but to my knowledge, she is not a comic character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Tabitha and Jughead is like my favorite relationship on the show. So.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I was a big Archie and Josie stan. I think that they had.
That was great.
They had the best relationship and gone too soon. It even like ended healthily too.
Yeah.
Like it was super healthy. They were on each other's level. But whatever. Archie's got to have his man pain. He can't do that in a stable relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So. But yeah, I would not begrudge anyone who feels like it was too little, too late. But yeah, they have done a lot better in this since season 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, other stuff that's going on before the play starts. Chick shows up and he's there and he's creepy. That's important for more the next episode than this episode because he could be a potential murderer. Maybe. I hate him. He sucks.
He was
very well acted in terms of trying to be creepy. The other thing that I love is that there's a sequence where Jughead, this is like the most documentary-y it gets, or honestly more like found footage horror than anything else. We track Jughead finding cut up magazines in Ethel's trash, which could point to her potentially having sent the scary notes.
Right.
Again, just setting up the murder mystery more for next week. What I love about that whole sequence is that like they do all of it to like the exact score from the De Palma Carrie movie.
QED, folks. It was Ethel.
What was?
Just the magazines.
Okay, I know what you're thinking, but you're wrong. Those were for my vision board.
It's okay. You can tell me.
Get out of my dressing room, Jughead.
I wonder how much they paid to like get to get access to just use it, because I don't think it's like a riff on it. It's literally just the score from that sequence. Oh, also like FP arrives there and see that Alice and Hal is made up and he's sad. And I only call that out because I like Skeet Ulrich and I think he's really good. He's of Scream fame if you don't recognize the name. But yeah, I really only was saying all that stuff because I wanted to call out people that I like. None of that stuff really matters, honestly, because the important part is that we referenced this earlier. As the play starts, Alice begins her part, which is the song Evening Prayers.
Father Almighty, she's only a child, but the woman is waking inside her. She will be lost if her passion runs wild, so I can't let her stumble and fall.
Which is just like a quiet little ballad. So you're not really expecting this to be the climax of the episode because you'd figured there would be a climactic final cast song or something, right? I think it's really genius that they don't do that. she's just singing this quiet ballad, and then the set lifts to reveal Midge, who was the understudy for Cheryl. So I don't think I mentioned that. Whatever, there's too much going on. Midge was the understudy for Cheryl, so she's gotten cast as Carrie, but she doesn't even get to play Carrie because she's now pinned against the wall with knives and scissors with a message in blood from the Black Hood saying, "I'm back from the dead. All who escaped me before will die." The crowd bursts into screams, and we cut to Riverdale.
I don't think that's part of the show.
Oh my God.
Somebody should help her. For God's sakes, help her!
It's so good.
It's so good.
Just
and like I said, it's just so unexpected when you're watching it. It's just sort of like, there's got to be one more big song after this, right? Like, this isn't the last song that they're going to have. And you don't even get to hear the whole thing because it's just fucking like death and murder. And then it's over.
And then just the chaos of Jughead's film where you just see like everyone in the audience just like, yeah.
Yeah. Except for Chick, who's just like
Chick is just sitting there like loving it because he's a creep.
God.
Yeah.
Creep. God. Yeah, this episode is so good.
It's a great episode for sure.
Yeah. Didn't even touch on like everything that's in the episode. I like there's so many other things in my notes, but it's just like I don't like there's just a lot happening and it's all really good. Like there's I love it. And the idea of doing a musical that's character based is not new. The idea of doing a musical that's kind of like therapy, that's a convergence of storylines, isn't new. Like that's why the Buffy musical is so good, because it also does that really well. But doing all of that is hard enough as it is and challenging enough as it is. Doing that on top of it being
a pre-existing
repurposing
work.
Of repurposing songs for pre-existing work, like, and then they make it work, and it's so integral to the season and the show.
Yeah,
like. Blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, it's really great. Like they since have done Heather's, Hedwig, and Next to Normal, and I think just in terms of because Hedwig is I felt the Hedwig performances were kind of muted.
Sure.
In the Hedwig episode, but because I love Hedwig. I have really no opinion on the Heather's musical much. But the Carrie musical, I love the music from. And I have to say, Next to Normal was a show that I had saw and didn't care for. And after I saw the way it was represented on Riverdale, I was like, I should maybe go back and give that another chance because I really liked the way the songs were utilized on the show. But this was the first, and the first, musical episode is always going to be the most, memorable. I kind of wonder. It's always interesting to see how they kind of shoehorn the musical in now that they don't have the conceit of putting on the high school show. Last year they just kind of went with it because Alice was obsessed with the cast album of Next to Normal. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do this year, because I feel like there's still a lot of kind of offbeat, non-traditional musicals they could do. Yes, it's going to be interesting to see.
I'm very curious. I think they just need to just let magic be a mainstay on the show, honestly.
I
do
too.
Magic spell makes everyone be in a musical. Just like let it happen. It's basically, it's almost there anyway. You're so close to that, already doing that.
We need to, they definitely need to, with this whole Riverdale being a shadow town of Riverdale, I don't know if this is going to prove to be a coma dream or whatever, but the fact that they're bringing Sabrina in, I very much want Riverdale proper to have a crossover with magic and supernatural on the regular, because the show can support the weirdness. It's not going to break from getting weirder and weirder. I eventually still want it to morph into Afterlife with Archie, because I question how much longer they can keep the show going, but it is the CW. So
yeah, I agree.
Because I feel like we're going to shortly, people's contracts are going to start running out and people are going to want to leave the show. I mean, you have actors like Lily Reinhardt on this show who are absolutely just tremendous talents, who are going to go on to massive things. And I just wonder how much longer this show can sustain its core cast.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Lily Reinhardt's already been in movies.
Yeah.
Like she was in Hustlers, and that was a massive movie to be part of. So it's like, yeah, if you lose Betty, the show's over. Like I don't think that they could continue the show without the core four. And
I think they could continue without Archie.
That's fair. That's fair. But I would.
I know for a fact they're bringing him back. But
yeah,
it's just
that's true. They could. That would be interesting. That would be really like. I don't think that the CW would let that happen,
right.
But I would like to see it.
I could totally see Archie Comics letting that happen because they're all about creative decision making, and I think they would be fine with having a Archie show without Archie. But who knows?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm curious. Do you have a favorite song from this episode?
It's absolutely
it's in.
I just think it's. I mean, I love musicals to begin with, and I think a good opening number is like you're obviously you're setting the pace for what's to come. As we're talking about this, I'm obsessed with Tick Tick Boom right now.
I haven't seen that
because it was a show I had seen. And I'm listening to the music, and that's got an incredible opening number. And it's a show who I think doesn't sustain the magic of the opening number. I think it kind of blows its wad with its opening number. And I don't think Carrie is that way. I think Carrie has a great opening number, and then it has like several like boom, 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 other big hits throughout. Other big hits, like showstoppers throughout. Sure. Can you say a show that was a failure has showstoppers? Yes, you can, and I'm doing it. But so In is absolutely my favorite song in the show. It was the one like I think that the record has probably been like worn down for the amount of times I've listened to In on it. How about you? What's your favorite in the show?
I think I agree with In as well. It's just really good. That said, the one that I often hum a lot is Do Me a Favor.
Yeah.
And I think it has more to do with I think it's a really good like the way that they sort of like layer the two different like scenes essentially on top of each other. I think is really cleverly done. And although that also is the song that has Archie's goofy face in it. So maybe that's just like that mental attachment has just made me love it more. That could also be part of it. But yeah. I'm definitely going to add some of these songs to my Spotify liked list for sure.
Yeah. As far as I know, like I don't know if the other Riverdale musicals got vinyl releases, but I know they all are on Spotify.
Which rules. They're very good. I've listened to that Josie and the Pussycats one over and over and over again because I love that one too. Any other final spare thoughts that you have about this episode?
I just think, I mean, just in conclusion, I just think the brilliant thing, like we've talked about it already, is how it incorporated the music and the characters and the situations of Carrie into what was kind of being paralleled with some of the characters on Riverdale in a way that felt effortless, and it didn't feel forced at all. And I like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's good shit. Good shit. Riverdale's a good show.
It really is. It's a ridiculous show. Like, no one's saying it's high art, but it is very entertaining and it's very well done. Like, you can have, like, I think people forget about like the 90s and like Melrose Place and and when you can have glorious trash done well, and this is done really, really well, and it looks great. Like the show is beautifully shot. The locations are great. It doesn't look cheap. The acting is like I like all of the actors on this show. Like even. Like, look, Riverdale can be rough at times because I think I think each season is too long. I would much rather have it. I would be fine with a season of like 10 episodes because with the way the show tends to have one central mystery, they forget about it for weeks at a time and they bring it back and they do subplots that don't really work and they try to congeal together all these different things and it never quite works with the exception of the first season, I feel. And
sure.
And I just, I wish there were less episodes a season to like let the show breathe a little bit more because there is so much happening at all times on this show.
Yeah. I will say I fully agree with you because that does make it a mess. But I also like love how it does feel like such a throwback to like network television that doesn't happen as much anymore because so many shows have like 13 episode seasons. So it's sort of like comforting to be like, yeah, this is just going to be a week where they just don't mention the main plot for no reason and none of this matters. And then we're just going to go on to the next week because they've got to fill out 22 to 23 episodes a season. It's just like, it's comforting to me, but it's not good. It could be better.
I would be fine with like 10 episode season. Like I would be
sure.
You know, but I'm a big fan of the British television less is more, you know, approach anyway. But but as a whole, I think, you know, we're 6 seasons into Riverdale and they're still taking big swings, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that about the show, that it is willing to kind of alienate viewers by upsetting the status quo and breaking up relationships and moving things around and switching people. Like I admire that about the show. But I'm also not 16 years old and I don't care about like who ships who, you know, like it's, you know, I don't.
Sure.
I'm also it's just objectively I'm way too old to be watching this show, but I
don't know. I feel like this show appeals more to older people than it does to actual teenagers, to be honest, because teenagers are going to roll their eyes at how stupid all this shit is. And then all of us are just going to just be like, fucking, great.
I don't know. I don't know, but
who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm never going to ask a teenager if they like Riverdale or not. So I'm just going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Chris, if anyone wants to talk to you or find you, talk to you about Riverdale, look up all your Riverdale stuff, or, you know, see anything else that you're doing on the internet, where can they find you?
Well, I cover all things Archie comics for denofgeek.com. I do a show called Sci-Fi Explosion, which is a cosmic cabaret of craziness that celebrates sci-fi ephemera. And that can be seen every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And every Saturday morning, I run a retro cartoon show called Cosmic Cartoons at 10 a.m. Eastern. And that's at twitch.tv/Sci-Fi Explosion. I also do a Sci-Fi Explosion live show. The best way to find out about that is to just follow Sci-Fi Explosion on your social media waste of time of choice. And you can also find my personal Twitter account at Bionic Bigfoot.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. You can find me on Twitter at Derek B. Gale, or on my other podcasts, Walloping Web Snappers, a Spider-Man podcast, which does deep dives into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made, and also Falling with Style, an ongoing Pixar movie marathon, which is a monthly podcast that dives into every Pixar film chronologically. You can also follow this podcast at Gimmicks Pod on Twitter and Instagram for some extra goodies like that KJ Appa Archie face that I'm definitely going to be posting. And you can also email me your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmickspodcast@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on all your podcast platforms. Until next time, friends, keep being weird.
Just a few days away. I've had nothing to eat since yesterday.
I'll be gone from the stump by the final week of May. All I care is I'll be there with the best looking guy.
If she asks me to dance, I swear I'll die.
I will never look back once I finally say goodbye.
This will be just great.
Oh, my life is gonna take flight. Can't wait till Saturday night.
$80 for a tux, then we better get laid.
You've been praying for that since the 7th grade.
It's the least we deserve after everything we've paid.
Got the food, got the drinks,
Got the limo for 10, and we won't get a chance like this again.
We'll be leaving as boys, but we're coming home as men. This will be just great. Yeah, my life is gonna take flight.
Can't wait till Saturday night. You ain't seen nothing yet.
nothing yet. It's gonna be a night we'll never forget.
So really, who should be playing Chris and who should be playing Sue?